website. My name is Matt Bauer. Okay, I guess I'm. Yeah, my chances of having that work well is probably pretty close to zero. So I think I'll just stay put here. Thank you. I'm the director for the Western Integrated Pest Management Center, which is a USDA-funded regional project working to promote integrated pest management throughout the West. I started in July of last year, and so I'm just going to update. I thought you said if I pointed this in. So I was just going to give you a brief background about what the center does. This is pretty high cut, so it's not a very detailed look at what we do. I couldn't really do that in 10 minutes anyway. One of the first things we do is identify priorities in the West for pest management issues, and then identify solutions to those pest management issues through partnerships and our grant program. This has been pretty successful over the last couple of years, where we've had some very big successes. We also work very hard to make sure that state and local voices, when it comes to pest management issues in state and localities within the West, that those opinions are heard by our federal partners and agencies at the federal level. This is really important because we have a lot of peculiarities to some of the things that we do in the West. Some of our cropping systems are very unique. Some of our urban situations are very challenging for us. And so it's important that the federal agencies who are busy regulating a variety of different things that we do in terms of pest management understand some of our needs. And then the last thing that we do is communicate success. That's the handout that I passed out, where we look at some of the successes in integrated pest management in the West. All right, so this is my last slide. I know we've all talked about a lot of the challenges that we faced this past year under COVID. It is certainly true that we face those challenges as well, but there was some really great things that happened as a result of that past 2 years. And that's what I'm talking about here. So like everybody else, we were restricted in travel. We also lost a lot of people. We had a lot of staff turnover. So what did that do? That actually wound up giving us a lot of savings that we were able to plug back into programming, into partnerships with folks in the West. So we had almost $500,000 to spend this past year on new center projects, which is really quite impressive. We also had a lot of state IPM coordinator turnover over the course of the last couple of years. And you would think that that might be a bad thing, but in fact, we met a lot of these people at a meeting about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was pretty exciting to hear some of their ideas. So I'm really, really happy about some of the new people that are coming on board. We definitely had a lot of financial challenges. I don't think I have to tell anybody in this room about some of those challenges. But we did see some light at the end of the tunnel from the Fed this past year. For instance, for USDA crop protection pest management funding, we saw a 40% increase from 4 million to 5.6 million. And then finally, as with most of us, we spent the year in isolation, and we probably spent a fair amount of that time navel gazing. Some of us found lint. Some of us decided to go strategic planning. And so that's what we're doing. And that's all I have. Oh, sorry. Any questions? Okie dokie.
Thank you, Matt. Very succinct. Great. Our next speaker is going to be Clayton Marlow, and he is the Western Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, the Western Region Coordinator. So Clayton, the time is yours.
First off, thank you, Matt, for providing me enough time to make a mistake or two here. Hopefully I won't do that. I have to put my glasses on so I can read my own slides. I'm just a year more senior than Matt, having taken this program over. So I'm still very much in the learning stages. And what I'm going to do, a speaker we heard this morning talked about shamelessly promoting his program. Well, that's what my intention is today, is to shamelessly promote Western Sarah. And oh, what did I quit there? Whoop. See, Matt, you left me too much time. I'm making mistakes there. Just to help you understand everything you heard from Dr. Steele and Schlutka earlier, Godfrey comes to us. Western SARE is funded as a subset of the NIFA budget. And I just want to point out a big difference here. NIH and NSF, who some of your faculty work with very, very closely, are very, very focused research topics. NIFA, on the other hand, tends to be more broad and general. And down at the very bottom, you get Western Sarah, and we are the generalists in this, in our support of sustainable agriculture. In fact, NIFA was told in its enabling legislation to invest in advanced ag research, education, and extension. And SARE, the initial stand for Sustainable Ag Research and Education. And I put sustainable and education highlighted because one of the things that we try to do very, really target on, I won't say very hard, but really target on, is converting the research of your faculty into education. Put it directly on the ground. And you'll notice right away, the SARE map looks just like the Western Association map. We cover exactly the same states, the same areas that you do. There are 3 other regions, but we tend to tease them a lot. The Western region is the largest, the highest, and the lowest, and the most ecologically and culturally diverse of any of the 4 regions. And they now are to the point they won't let me say anything because I've said that too often, but we are incredibly diverse in the projects and the things that are being done in the West. You see a bit of what we're trying to promote. The biggest thing we're trying to do is promote and enhance the production and really livability of our rural communities. That's our emphasis. And we're achieving these goals by your faculty working with very, very close working relationship with not only the extension people, but the producers on the ground. And I'll mention this a little later, but I'm going to bring it up again. If you're not familiar with it in a Western or North Central or Eastern or Southern SARE proposal, you have to have producers directly involved in the research effort. They're not to be just placeholders. They're to be actively involved. And in managing the review panels, I can tell you that the people on the review panels really take that involvement of the producers seriously. So we're organized into 2 pieces. The host institution, I'm at Montana State University. My boss is sitting back there to make sure I do this right. We manage the program, but the outcome, the look, the decisions, the priorities are really generated by a 15 to 18 person advisory council. And this advisory council right now in the West is made up of 7 ranchers, producers, and then representatives from the NRCS, the tribes, I just want to bring USGS, among others, the EPA. So we get a very broad view of the project or the research needs and directions that we need to follow. The program itself is in the 1990 legislation, there were to be what they referred to as 3 chapters. Chapter 1 was research and education. Chapter 2 was a training center where extension folks could go to be trained. And then chapter 3 was the professional development, the state grants programs, the RGR granting programs to help extension programs. Now notice I put chapter 2 very faint. That wasn't a typo. That has never been actualized. Chapter 1 and chapter 3. Chapter 3 in the West right now is run out of the University of Wyoming. Dr. Crane isn't here. I was going to say if there were any hard questions, he would answer the hard ones and I'd get the easy ones. And I scared him away. He's in another meeting someplace else. So here are our overarching responsibility. Chapter 1 develops and manages the competitive research and extension. Chapter 3 really looks after the education, professional development. We try to work hand in hand to make a significant impact out there. And we tried doing it through the efforts of our extension agents, graduate students, and faculty, all working together to come up with new ideas and technologies, everything that has been talked about earlier, being innovative, being at the center of changes. Western Sarah is your laboratory to do that in. We seek to have very high quality, credible publications, and importantly, we try to reach a broader audience. We do this, we have expert panels that review proposals, but we train them, and then we facilitate the panel reviews. Among other things, we make sure there's no conflict of interests, that we have good peer recommendations that go to the administrative council. Here's now where we're getting down to the nitty gritty. This year, we have roughly $6.7 million that is being allocated to Western scientists and producers. The Chapter 1 grants program, research and education, farmer, rancher, professional and producer, graduate student, and sabbatical. Again, I put in highlights, the producers have to be involved in these projects. The research and education proposal, $350,000 ceiling, farmer and rancher, $25,000, professional and producer, $75,000. The graduate students and the sabbatics. Are you going to let me have a little extra time, Barb? Yeah. Okay. She said she's going to come up and get me by the ear and drag me off, so I'm afraid. So here is how the administrative council saw fit to proportion out the money, that 6.6 million. 3.4 went to the research and education program, 500,000 to farmer and rancher. Farmer and rancher is farmer rancher directed research in which a faculty member or an extension agent acts as the mentor. Professional and producer, in this situation, the professional, again, an extension agent, a faculty member, really take more of the leadership, but still have to work closely with the ranchers. $350,000 allocated to that program. Graduate students has to have a graduate advisor and then a sabbatical. And this was the question I asked this morning. I want to really emphasize this opportunity. Your faculty apply for this sabbatical, not for themselves, but to bring somebody else to your campus to either strengthen your research program, your outreach program. And what an opportunity to invite our 1994 faculty onto your campus. Think about this. Your faculty could write a sabbatic. This money goes to support the invited faculty then to attend your campus. Chapter 3 programs, professional development, 1.3 million state implementation programs, and the research to grassroots. And the research to grassroots is a unique project developed in the West. This is funding going to extension agents who have been relatively successful on earlier projects and really want to extend the life of the project. And so this is a chance to give them some money to extend a program. Where the awards gone, and here's where I suddenly become very shameless. Each one of those pins represents where a project was funded this year. And you'll notice some gaps in there. And I don't know what we're doing wrong, why we're not able to incentivize some programs, some individuals to apply for these monies. In fact, I just did a calculation the other day for a staffer out of DC, and the research and education, 350,000, about a 35% acceptance rate with that one. Farmer ranchers, we're looking somewhere just about 38 or 40% acceptance rate. Now, admittedly, if we get more applications, that's, unless you're successful in getting us more money, that acceptance rate's going to go down a little bit, but it's well worth the time and effort to apply. Hawaii, Guam, very active in this program. Here again, I'm going to be shameless. May I suggest to you, and I'm just going to be bold and suggest this to you, that you begin to look at the Western Sarah program as a great early career training opportunity for your faculty. Certainly the largest amount we give, 350,000, doesn't compare with an AFRI $10 million grant. But if you've got young faculty that you're trying to grow and train, Western Sarah is the place to start training them. Giving them the opportunity to train graduate students, working in this program certainly updates your faculty. And importantly, it gives you the chance to talk about how this research is being focused in the local community. One question, and I'm going to beat Brett to this already. I deliberately use this slide so I'll get at least one question. How did he get in that hole? It was a wildfire, and this was an urban wildland interface development, and that's the sewer line. And he stepped on that manhole cover just right and went in backwards.
Thank you, Clayton. A very interesting picture there. Our next presenter is Shannon Neibergs, and he is with the Western Extension Risk Management Education. He is the center director. Shannon.
Great, thanks for getting my slides up. So I'm Shannon Neibergs. I'm an agriculture economist at Washington State University, and I've been serving as the center director since 2011. And so the Western Extension Risk Management Center is one of 5 centers across the country sharing the same regional states. I'd like to point out our colleagues across the country. And we're also unique, and we have a digital center that is our technology center where all the applicants apply, where they do their reporting and where we do our statistical analysis of the program. Each of these centers have a long history. Those centers, as they're located in those states at land-grant universities, have been located there since 2011 when I started. We are funded through federal legislative mandate and funding that's been appropriated. First, it was the Crop Insurance Protection Act, and in 2018, it was updated under the Farm Bill, and now our title's under the Farm Bill. But we've been given really strict, a strict mandate on what we can fund and what we can do, and that mandate is to educate producers about the broad range of risk across agriculture. If you think about it, risk is pervasive. Anybody's program would likely fit into our funding as long as it deals with educating agriculture producers. That's the key. If it's education's extension and agriculture producers is outreach, and those type of projects we fund quite well. We are not able to fund any research, which is disappointing to some. So I've had several questions on funding plot type research and then doing the outreach on that, but that doesn't fit our program. It doesn't fit our funding mandate. So all we can do is the outreach, and that's important to think about, but also it's important to think that we can fund decision aid development. We can fund curriculum development. So those activities are definitely within our budget scope. We have 3 project types. Long traditional is what we call our education projects. That's been in place since the inception of the centers, and they're $50,000 projects. In the 2018 Farm Bill, we were redirected some funds to serve producers underserved by crop insurance. The underserved terminology is unfortunate because that's typically been used to target special emphasis audiences. So it has created a little bit of confusion, but what our program is underserved by crop insurance. And I could talk to you more about that in the evening if you care to do so. But those projects are now funded up to $100,000. And exploratory projects are up to $5,000. And if you're have a new faculty member wanting to do a needs assessment, that needs assessment is certainly fundable under our program, and we'd like to promote those exploratory projects into full projects. So that's a good way for people to do some exploratory research or development of their project idea. One thing that's also of interest here, I didn't put it in writing, but the project lengths are 18 months. And so that's, while we have a lower funding amount, the time frame shorter, and we have several projects that keep reapplying to the pool to continue their program over several years. In this graphic, what I wanted to portray is that we have fairly good geographical distribution of the projects across the West. You can see the type's a little bit small, sorry for that, but Washington, Colorado, and Idaho are right around 12% over the group of portfolios. And there's Utah, Nevada, Hawaii, were targeted states, and those states were, prior to the 2018 Farm Bill, received a special allocation of money to do that work, and that's folded into our program. And so while those states are lower in the distribution since I took over in 2011, which reflects this data, I'm very happy to say they're very active, and we have a number of good projects in those targeted states now, and those are going quite well. One of the things that I think is advantage to our program, probably not to to this audience, but to people who I hope that you in turn promote this to, is that our RFA is available online for last year. It's going to be very similar to next year. And our funding cycle, we will be releasing the next RFA in September. So that's been pretty consistent. Well, not pretty consistent. It's been very consistent. It adds some stability and it lets people work towards that goal and put it on their calendar. I think that's very helpful. And you can get those at the URL. So if we look at some emerging risk management issues on programs coming down the road, this meat and poultry processing workforce education monies has been appropriated by the American Recovery Act. And so we're looking to roll out this education project in the near future. We haven't received those monies yet, but that's to help direct meat marketing programs, which have become real popular, and also addressing the meat packer concentration. That was one of the incentives for putting this monies together. The second bullet point is farm business planning and debt relief. That effort was stymied by a lawsuit, but that's being resolved in 2022, this year, later this year. We're going to be announcing resources in education across the West, across the eArmy program of the country, the West, to do financial literacy workshops and education and training. So that's a exciting opportunity that's coming down the road as well. We have regional priorities set each year by stakeholders groups. We've consistently dealt with climate risk and disaster with wildfires. And so there's a number of projects and resources available through that. And I probably was negligent to mention our database of resources and curriculum that's available through our website as well. The reporting format is really conducive to helping people write their annual review, their project success stories. We're real proud of that efforts. We have a lot of resources for that. And I would encourage people to you can drive them to me and I can point them to those resources, but we're real proud of that. We have some national experts that are providing some of that curriculum development for us. Any questions? Real good. Well, I hope to talk to you individually this evening and give you some more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Our next speaker is Don Albrecht. He is Executive Director of the Western Rural Development Center. Welcome, Don.
Hi, everybody. It is great to be here. It's good to see you in person for first time in years, a lot of you. So I am director of the Western Rural Development Center. We have the same regional breakdown as everybody else in this meeting so far. And so just tell you some of the things that we've been involved in recently. 2022 is the 50th anniversary of the creation of the 4 regional rural development centers, created with the Rural Development Act of 1972. And so we have resolutions and proclamations that talking about the things that we've accomplished. The extension directors and experiment station directors have already provided proclamations for us. So thank you very much. And we're looking for others. We're going to be celebrating all year. We have a place on our website where anybody that's interested could go on and talk about any stories you've had over the years in your involvement with the WRDC or the other regional rural development centers. So this year, the 4 regional rural development centers have been asked to undertake a nationwide initiative to collect data and provide discussions about rural recovery. This started with the pandemic, and we sent out surveys. Probably many of you were asked to participate. Maybe some of you did, where we had 8 different topic areas. We asked people to prioritize those, and then not only rank them in terms of priority, but also your capacity to deal with them. And this is the results, and we can share this. The full report is available on our website also. But in the West, top priority was on physical infrastructure, followed by economic development, health, and then workforce development. And it's very similar to the national kinds of things. And it comes out that where our priorities are don't necessarily match with where our capacity is. The things that we need to address are not the things that we are capable of addressing very well. And so we are involved in some listening sessions. The first one, those times are Eastern. I think it's right now. So the first of these listening sessions is occurring. We are hosting 2 of these listening sessions, and again, this information has been shared and will be shared with everyone, and hope to have you join us with some of these discussions. So in addition to this, we have been for a number of years been involved with what we call our area sector analysis program. It is a strategic planning process to help rural communities develop a plan to move forward and have economic development plans that make sense in the 21st century. That a lot of them would like to have plans that worked in the 1960s. Well, that doesn't work anymore, and so this process helps them go through this. This is a bit updated. It says 45 communities. We're well into the 50s now. Before I came into this meeting, I was finding a place in the corner to do one of these virtually. So one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is, prior to the pandemic, I spent my entire life on the road, and I was on a plane or a car all the time, a lot of times going to communities and working with them. And it was great. And I learned a lot of stuff, and being there in the community is extremely beneficial. Then the pandemic came, and we couldn't travel. I think we've become a whole lot smarter, that instead of visiting a community in Arizona 6 different times and buying 6 plane tickets, we do some of the meetings virtually, and then do a face-to-face one as well. And so I think we've learned how to use our resources more wisely and still accomplish the things we need to. We have learned that a whole bunch of Zoom meetings isn't the solution either, that there's a whole bunch of benefit in being face-to-face. About the time that the pandemic began, we started what we call the Western Extension Community Development Working Group. So we have extension community development people scattered all over the West. A lot of them don't have a whole lot of colleagues. They might be the 1 or 2 in their entire state that's doing this type of thing. And so we have a monthly phone call where we can provide a community where people can share ideas, learn from one another. We've broken them into different working groups, and some of these have taken on projects, got some funding, had some meetings, and all kinds of stuff. But I think it's just important to provide that kind of community for people. The WRDC was instrumental in establishing what we call the National Extension Climate Initiative. It was organized in 2019. It is a place where extension personnel working on climate issues can have a home, and there's now over 600 members nationwide who are part of this community. And so they have meetings, have speakers, share ideas, and lots of good things are coming out of this. We had an action forum a year ago in 2021 where trying to think if anybody here was speaking on the program, but that went extremely well as well. Being the time it was virtual. We have partnered with primarily our partners at Montana State, Paul LaChapelle and Deborah Albin in the Rainbows Over the Rockies. 2021, they had a summit, and then they're looking to go forward with work on this. Finally, well, not finally, but during the pandemic, with my job, I was very interested in the impacts that the pandemic was going to have on rural communities. Initially, the pandemic was centered in the big cities, and people were working virtually. And I thought, man, this is a great opportunity for rural communities. They're safer, and we've all learned to work virtually. And so a lot of people can build their home in some great little rural community and live happily ever after. But then as I kept collecting data on this, it flipped. And so I ended up writing a few articles, one in a sociology journal, one in a medical journal, one in a public health journal, but a real strong relationship between political views and COVID outcomes. In the past year, the death rate is 3 times higher in certain types of communities based on their political views. So really interesting stuff that's came out of that. The center continues to publish research briefs on all issues related to rural economic development. And we publish our Rural Connections, our publication, which the goal of which is to, somebody in Nevada has a fabulous idea, to share it with other states, to try to get some of this information across state boundaries. And so I think I did it in my time. Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you, and look forward to talking to you again in a few minutes.
Our last speaker is Brad Gaolach. He's from the Western Center for Metropolitan Extension and Research, and you are the last one, Brad. So
It's going to be used up with some technology change. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I think there we go. So for something a little bit different. We are a membership-based organization. We were founded by WIDA in 2015 with 6 states from the West being the initial founding members. Since then, we've grown to the 12 land-grant universities you see up there. And if your eyes are good in your scanning, you will notice we're a little bit more than outside the West. Cornell is a member, University of Florida is a member, Ohio State, Michigan State. So we aren't the same geographical boundaries as everybody else who has talked to you. And we are funded solely by our member institutions for the work that we do. And where we're at is we're sort of updating what we started with into our why statement as we move into our kind of version 2.5, 3.0 of the Western Center, where we really believe that the land-grant university system applied through extension and in partnership with communities, governments, organizations, and corporations can help metropolitan regions improve the health and well-being of the residents, achieve equitable economic growth, and steward their natural environments. So in reality, we are content independent and geographically focused and trying to look at how do we bring the power of the land-grant university to look at metropolitan issues, metropolitan topics, and sort of the urban-rural continuum. Sort of our areas of emphasis is we've been looking at issues of importance to our stakeholders. So sort of those content areas and where do we build those connections. We also are trying to look at extension best practices. And those are at sort of the ground level of working with county extension faculty in metropolitan areas. In the West, those often are very few resources per state. So it is almost that culture that they can belong to and talk to somebody else that they may not have a peer in their own state. But then we also are looking at how do we elevate the urban and metropolitan issues within extension in the land grant university more broadly. And then we do professional development again at that program personnel level, and we do that in cooperation with the National Urban Extension leaders. But we also look at how can we support the extension system in professional development related to that. So how do we do our work? So what are some of the activities? We have things we call deep dives, and that's where we take time and fund faculty members as a fellow to do a focused in-depth project for the Western Center. And we try to use that to spur innovation and analysis of issues. And we also then will host workshops and events, and those may be part of a deep dive or they may be standalone. We often use those as trainings or to bring gatherings together. So we've used the workshop approach to bring research, extension, and stakeholders together to help co-create opportunities in urban areas. And then we also will do webinars, and we are beginning to move into sort of a project-based approach with subject matter emphasis. And again, those may or may not be part of the deep dives led by fellows, or they may be led by the Western Center Central, which really is me, half-time, and 10% of another person, both in kind provided by Washington State University. So Washington State University is the host for the Western Center. So what are some of the projects we're working on? And one that I really want to highlight is we had gotten involved early on in working with green infrastructure as a seminar workshop area. And then we got an NSF workshop grant to hold a sustainable urban systems workshop. That got us exposed to researchers in the West so that when they went and applied for a NSF Sustainable Regional Systems Research Network, a $15 million 5-year grant, they came to the Western Center and asked us to be part of that. And they were funded, one of only 2 in the nation. And the Western Center's role is really to look at that engagement with stakeholders, the co-creation of the research agenda, and then how do we connect with extension, the extension programs across the West. So areas that they're working on is in headwaters and water systems, regional food, energy, and water systems, governance around those issues, community and environmental well-being, and indigenous and local place-based knowledge systems. So I have more information about that I can share in the thing, but I think this evening, but it would be a great opportunity to connect faculty to these projects and extension to these projects. The other projects we're working on is we've been getting involved in the Urban Indoor and Emerging Agriculture Program, which I will be talking about tomorrow, so I won't go into it too much there. We also are in the process of trying to get a USDA workshop grant put together to work at the wildland urban interface for wildfire and urban smoke. And I don't know how well it shows up on the bottom, but that is a picture of Seattle and the Puget Sound in August. And that was not a wildfire in Seattle. That was some of the smokiest days I've ever experienced in my life. And then of relevance to some of the, talking about the deep dives, the ones that are coming out that we fund this year that may be of interest to folks, is we have 2 faculty members looking at how do ag research stations in urban environments transition to being in those urban environments. How do they change their research agenda? How do they change and manage their funding structures? And we also are looking at a BIPOC urban food systems deep dive, and then looking at how do you use horticultural systems for behavioral health centers, and using an example out of New Mexico State. Some of the coins of the realm for departmental faculty is we cross our projects. We've worked with 20 universities, 51 faculty. Again, our money comes from partners, so while it's not a lot of money, we try to put as much of our membership money out as possible. And I think our last budget cycle, we've put 70% of our funding goes out to seed grants to those faculty. Involved in 6 peer-reviewed journal articles and 10 technical reports, 4 policy briefings, and 22 scholarly presentations, both content-based and on the urban extension forum and moving that issues forward. So my ask opportunities for you is would love to connect with more research faculty around urban agriculture to join a WDC 53 project. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. Promote and connect opportunities with that transformation network. That's that NSF grant. And then for the Western Center, raise awareness. The fellowship applications will come out in June or July, and we now have 3 types of fellows. We have the deep dive fellows, we have a graduate student fellow, and a sabbatic fellow that we provide funding for all of those. If you're a member institution, we accept membership most anytime. And part of that would be is if you want to help fill out this map a little bit. It's a different view of whom represents the Western Center. And with that, I will close, and I think we're early to get to questions. Okay.
Thank you, Brad. You know, it's pretty impressive that you get on the agenda twice, you know, today and again tomorrow. That's great. Just want to go ahead and let you know that this concludes this part of our time. However, there is a networking social that's down here in the Paradise Terrace area. And so that will give you an opportunity to visit with each one of these individually and learn more about what they're doing, ask your questions individually, and look at different ways that you can partner with them. And I also would remind you then that we will be meeting back here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. It's not 8:15, it's 8 a.m. So we'll all see you here in the morning. Is that all, Brett?
I didn't realize the speaker was back on. So the terrace is closed off intentionally. So we get our own private little quarters. That we are behind the air wall. There's 2 glass doors that are kind of by the exit, and you'll enter there. Starts at 5 o'clock. So you have a little time to take care of some business before the reception begins. And then tomorrow, because we had another group joining us, we're going to put a divider in. And so want to tell everybody on my right side of the room, your left side, that you're welcome to stay in this room and continue to visit and everything. We just like you to shift to the other side so that the staff can set up for tomorrow's presentations. So we'll just come through that door on your right, my left, in the morning. And Jen, did I cover everything? Okay, we'll see you all again at 5.